Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami, and this is episode 86. In today's episode, I interview one of my coaches about her fibromyalgia story, including how she went from honestly thinking she was dying to feeling healthier than she ever has before. I've recently heard from several of you saying how important it's been for you to hear stories of real people with fibromyalgia who have found real ways to feel better and live a life they love. It's been important for you to see yourself reflected back in those stories and to get new ideas about things that you can do to feel better. All too often we hear people, including our doctors, saying how horrible fibromyalgia is, how there's really nothing that can be done, and how it's incurable. We almost never hear the other side, though. Fibromyalgia symptoms can be horrible, absolutely. It can be disabling for many people. And there is a lot that can be done to treat and minimize those symptoms. There is no cure, that is true, and fibromyalgia can be managed in a way that doesn't impact your life as much. In fact, it's possible for fibromyalgia to be in remission with no pain, no fatigue, and no brain fog. I know several people who have their fibromyalgia in remission, and even more people who are living the life they want to live, even though their fibromyalgia isn't quite completely in remission. So today, I want you to hear Julie's story. As always, Julie is sharing her story about what worked for her. The information included in this episode is not meant to be considered medical advice, nor is it intended to replace consulting with a qualified physician or other healthcare provider. We do hope, however, that this gives you some new ideas that you can take to your doctor to talk to them about whether these things might work for you. And of course, we're always available for consultations as well if you would like to talk to a coach, someone like Julie. Now, Julie Schiffman was first diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome over 20 years ago. Julie's actually had fibromyalgia longer than I have. While she worked very hard over those years on ways to improve her life with chronic illness, it wasn't until she found me and my training institute and started working with the Certified Fibromyalgia Coach that she felt someone really understood and could offer her the support she needed to help her feel better. When Julie was beginning her training to become a coach herself, she started learning why her body was feeling the way it was and what would help her feel better. She regained her confidence and became even healthier than she imagined possible. Julie still spends a good portion of her time researching and learning more on chronic pain and fatigue, the mind-body connection, life organization systems, and self-care. Julie is more passionate than ever to continue sharing her training, knowledge, and experience as she walks alongside other women, especially mothers and grandmothers, who suffer from the same feelings of overwhelm and isolation that she felt caused by their chronic illness. If she isn't coaching, you'll find Julie spending time with her husband and family, including her 7 grandchildren who all live close by. Julie loves her new freedom. She feels better than she ever has and has only slight limitations. Most importantly, she loves her life more than ever. So now enjoy my interview with Julie and stay tuned after the interview for our listener shout out and information on how you can hear more stories like Julie's, more stories of fibromyalgia hope and healing. Hi, Julie. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here and to share your story.
Hi, Tami. So good to be here.
We've had so many people lately talk about how valuable the stories that they hear on this podcast have been for them, both with our stories of hope and healing events and also just like me sharing my story. So I'm excited to have you and some of our other coaches on here soon sharing your stories. So when were you diagnosed with fibromyalgia? Was fibromyalgia the thing you were diagnosed with first? I guess that's probably a good question too.
Well, here goes the story because, boy, it was a long time ago. I was obviously in the 90s, probably around maybe 95, 97-ish. And I had, of course, wasn't feeling well and had all of these wonderful symptoms that started. And really, I can think back to even as a kid, my fatigue was always kind of strange. You know, my mom would say, "Hey, do you want to go play with the neighbor kids?" And I'd be, "I'll just stay home and take a little nap." And that's a little odd for a kid looking back. I think that's probably maybe some signs that something was going on inside of my body. But anyhow, while I was, being a mom and raising these kids, of course, I had your exhaustion and the pain that comes with that and the depression, like everything. And I'd go to the doctor. And as all of you probably know, the first thing they'll do is say, "Well, how are things really going with you?" Right? Because it certainly must be just in my mind that this is happening. Back then, fibromyalgia was not something that was really talked about. It literally was what my doctor called a wastebasket disease. I mean, it wasn't even a disease, right? And he said, if we can't find anything, that's kind of what we label you with. So, I'm, of course, crying at the doctor's. Most doctor appointments for a while I did cry at.
Been there.
But yeah, I think we all have. And I just really started to get worse. I would push myself and I would think, okay, things are going okay. Maybe it is in my head. And of course, I tried counseling. I've tried antidepressants and I did all the things that doctors had recommended at the time to do. Yet I was still getting worse. It seemed that every year it was like progressing. The strange thing was, and I didn't have a lot of people to talk to about, was that you kind of feel like maybe I'm okay at times. Like the symptoms aren't horrible. So maybe it's really nothing. Maybe I just need to forget it and move on. So that would, of course, I would push myself harder and then I would crash harder, as we know.
Yep, exactly.
Right? The whole push crash cycle. So I got diagnosed when I had gone down to like a Virginia Mason in the Seattle area. So kind of one of a clinic who could kind of give me I think it was a rheumatologist who gave me kind of the check mark of the diagnosis.
And about when was that?
Like 97, around when my daughter was born.
So just to put some context on that for people who don't know fibro history,
Yes.
Fibromyalgia was only published with the diagnostic criteria in 1990. So this is only you started looking for answers and this was barely even a thing, even though we've known about fibromyalgia and it's in medical literature that goes back 200 years. But that was when we first had written out, here's the diagnostic criteria. It's also before any of the medications that are approved for use with fibromyalgia, before those even existed. So this is like the dark ages, Julie.
Speaking of the dark ages, I was at the library, the physical library, pulling every book I could find. If it said fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, I was all over it. And there was a few people like Dr. Teitelbaum. He had a wonderful book and of course read it front to cover. And, I just did everything I could to learn about it. But there wasn't a lot of facts out there. It was just a lot of doctors' opinions. And this might work, but I think it would work for most people. I think it was just, how do we get you healthier, which is a good place to start, but it doesn't solve the fibro problems. So anyhow, things had gotten a little worse after I had actually a flu shot. It kind of something happened inside and I got really bad. So then I did more and more testing and we find there's an autoimmune problem. So I didn't have this before, but I had it after. So now my immune system had turned. We don't know why. I'm assuming might be from that, but again, nobody really knows too much about that.
And was it anything specific autoimmune wise, or was it just like a general vague some?
Right. What do they call it? Undifferential or something, some strange name. But the doctor actually said, I mean, we could call it the Julie disease. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, because we don't have a name for what you have, but like, let's say your kidney starts failing. You probably have lupus. I mean, these are the kind of things now we're apparently watching for systems to just fail. So then we can classify me with different problems. That's what I felt like. Maybe I needed to be looked at again. Maybe there was something they were missing, right? Nobody can just say, well, your immune system's attacking itself. So yeah, you feel awful. Okay. I think back then, even for that, they didn't do much because they saw, oh, well, you have fibromyalgia. That was kind of the first.
How did you feel about all of that? Was that scary to like not have a name or a like clear diagnosis?
Absolutely. I think that was one of the most frustrating things in my process over these 20 years has been not knowing if this is really what it was. And when you feel like you literally are going to die, you are at the doctors, you are at the clinics, you are flying here, you're going there, you're trying the weird diets, you're doing anything because you really I felt I was going to die and I needed someone to listen and help. And spent a lot of time and energy and money and a lot of tears were shed. And really that's all they could say was, of course, all the things that go with fibro, you've got the thyroids and you've got the adrenal and all of those were out of whack too, of course. But apparently I wasn't dying is basically the moral of the story. Yay. I just get to feel like crap every single day. That wasn't good for me either.
Right. Like, it's like, okay, you're not going to die. And there's part of you that's probably like, well, crap. You mean this isn't going to end?
Right. Exactly. And I could tell somebody I have this and they would understand what it is. That would be nice.
Right. And of course, during all of this, I'm assuming, like most of us, you look just fine.
Oh boy, did I ever. And I say that jokingly because I felt like I was two different people. Here I was at home, barely functioning on the couch. And I think my face was like upside down most of the time. And I would walk out the door, we'd head to church and, oh, hi, hello. Oh, good to see you. Oh, how are you? Great. I'm great. That's what you do. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. The problem is then when someone is like, well, why can't you, go walk around the fair with me? There's no way, but they don't see me at home, right? They see that person that's out. So it's confusing for the people that are in the world seeing you. It's confusing for your children who see you differently out in the world and you feel like you're not giving them 100%. Very tough situation.
My mom's not like your mom.
Right. Exactly. My mom looks a little different and acts a little different. And at the time, boy, the mom guilt. That's a big one for moms. So where am I? Let's see.
How was it with your husband, your family, like those relationships?
That was tough. I am so blessed by a family who's been supportive and understanding, willing to learn about it. They just give me the grace to kind of be able to be who I am at the moment. And, I don't want to skip way forward, but that was, finding you really helped me on that kind of honesty pattern, being authentic in how I feel and who I am. That's really been one of the most life-changing things for me that really did make the difference.
So there you are running around trying to find answers. And the best answer you get is we've got some kind of weird autoimmune, but we still don't know what it is. You've got Julie disease.
I've got my own problem. Oh, great.
You're so special.
I'm so special. And boy, did I get the runaround from doctors because I looked as if I was doctor seeking, drug seeking. Every doctor would put me on at this point, let's say, okay, so now we're maybe 10 years later.
So 2000, early 2000s.
Yeah, I want to say Lyrica was probably out. There was another one out there, starts with an S, Savella.
Cymbalta probably has come out. Savella probably came out. Those three all kind of came out just within a few years of each other.
And of course, I'm all over that. I would try those. And some worked for a short period of time. Others just gave me side effects that weren't worth it. But at this time, I had seen so many doctors, was in so much pain. I was on some heavy duty narcotics. I was on a benzodiazepine constantly for anxiety, which I had not had previous to all of these things. What else? Of course, you got to go to sleep. So I would take a sleeping pill. Oh, got to wake up in the morning. Let's have some Provigil or something, for people that have daytime sleepiness. So I literally felt like I was on ups and downs. Oh, and then we got the pain pills and the pain patches, like a fentanyl patch at one point. This is how awful I felt. I would just go back and say, please just help me. I feel terrible. Well, of course, I wasn't functioning on pain medicine. I mean, it was horrible, a horrible situation. That's a story for another time. But the problem really is at that point, I'm on all these medications that I know are making me worse. But the answer is what? Rehab? Go to rehab and get off all your medications? I will be in so much pain. I mean, no, thank you. No, thank you. What do I lock myself in a closet and just try to bear it and just sweat myself to death? What do I do? So anyhow, there's clinics for that as well. Found one. But anyhow, so getting off all my medications during that time was really helpful. I did start to feel better. I think my health was kind of deteriorated so much because of my lack of even hardly moving. Didn't want to do a thing. So again, it was just times of awful in bed, not functioning. And then there were these times of, oh, she's fun. Oh, she's out there, she's playing with her kids at the park. And then I'm in bed for a week. Right. So it was just hard to manage. And there was not a lot of people that understood this, including my doctor,
Right.
my personal doctor. So anyhow, that's where I was at that point.
And how old were your kids at this point in the story?
So I think my oldest was probably just starting high school. And so middle school, I have three daughters, and one's about 5 years younger than the middle. And the others are close. I do remember my oldest daughter writing this letter, or maybe it was a class assignment about fibromyalgia and how her mom had it. And it brought me to tears because she did really get me. She really understood what I was going through. I remember that moment, and I remember thinking, okay, Julie, yep, you've got this. Yep, you feel bad about it. Yep, can't do what everybody's doing. But what can you do? So I did start to pick up some pieces here and there, and I did start to learn how I could try some different things and start to gain a little bit more endurance. But I still wasn't there. I still wasn't feeling healthy, and I was still trying to get tests to make sure everything was okay. Because in the back of my head, it's still, is it really this? So then at that point, I actually had gone to the Mayo Clinic, which, great place. And I had them do a battery of tests. And
Test everything.
I mean, if anybody's gone, you're testing everything. And a quick little side note, it's funny, I talked with the psychiatrist there, of course. That's part of it, which we all need. And I asked him, I said, I am so consumed with this pain and this feeling. Am I a hypochondriac? And what? I loved his answer. He said, no, if you're worried about being a hypochondriac, you're not a hypochondriac. And I thought, well, what do you mean? And he said, because they're still trying to tell me their symptoms. And you're worried about how you're being perceived about your symptoms, which is a different problem, Julie. So we'll get to counseling now for that.
Definitely. So in that time, was there anything that was working at all for you?
I think at that point had resorted to going on a few medications again in order to kind of help with the symptoms because they weren't fun. So I was doing okay. I was just kind of trying to make life work. And during that whole Mayo Clinic thing, I remember at the end that the doctor, giving my whole thing, my whole story, and he says, now it is fibromyalgia. You can be assured of that. And I just burst out into tears. And I couldn't get it together. And so we're walking out. My husband is kind of like, isn't that a good thing? Like, you're not dying. We didn't find a brain tumor or, you're okay. And I said, I am not okay. This is not okay. I don't want to live like this. And he just said, you have something now that you have to live with forever. It just was devastating. So that was really kind of a punch to the gut. And during this whole time, I wasn't able to work any longer. And I had even applied for Social Security for 13 years. I went on that battle, going to hearings, and again, a story for another day. But that was
right. That's a whole podcast episode right there. Your
really
journey.
Is. My journey on that definitely learned a lot. So getting back to this journey of the disability is finally at a point where I was like, this was probably 2017, I think, or 18. And I couldn't do it anymore. And I'm sitting down with the last paperwork that's saying, you're lying, Julie, you're not sick, basically from the judge saying, you're not disabled, just work a little harder, basically. And I was on my phone scrolling, and here do I see Tami Stacklehouse. I've seen her around. Of course, I knew about her book. I knew everything about her. I was that silent stalker.
Little did I know, I had a stalker.
And she did her first live. I was there. Like on Facebook, you did like a 7 days in a row or something.
Yeah, no, it was a whole month. I did Facebook Lives for a whole month for Fibromyalgia Awareness Day one year. Whew, that was a lot of work.
So that's where those seeds were kind of being planted over the years. And then I thought, she's a coach and she has this book. Then I read the coach book. I hadn't read the second book you'd written. And of course, it was like you're talking to me, which everyone who reads it says that. But I truly thought, well, we've definitely, buddies on this. We've got the same problems. And here you went out and did something about it and made a difference for other people. So that kind of gave me this little fire inside saying, she did it, maybe you could. So, of course, got a hold of you, and the story would continue.
Yeah. That it's so fun because of course I live my life from my perspective, right? And it's so fun sometimes to hear stories about, like what was going on with you as you're stalking me. And what you were thinking and things like that. My first book, I will just say this for you listening, my first book, Take Back Your Life, is really more of like a treatment guide. So I'm sure that's the one you read first, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course.
And that has just come out with a new edition with new chapter and stuff like that. So make sure you go check that out, and we'll have links in today's show notes. So just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/86 and we'll have links to the new edition of my book. And the second book Julie was just talking about is the Fibromyalgia Coach. And that book is all about finding work that supports your healing. Of course, the answer for me was becoming a coach. But yeah, it's really all about finding that purpose in life and helping others. And
yeah, that was really just got to me. And I thought, maybe even if I started your program, I think at the time there was the advisor program, I thought, well, I'm going to do that and learn as much as I can about fibromyalgia, which I do have to say I knew quite a bit because, I had the books.
Right. You've been studying even longer than I have.
There was a few things I already knew, but boy, I learned so much over the course of that class. And while I was doing it, of course, I knew I wanted to be a coach. That was my ultimate goal. But I had my thought of, and even if I didn't, if I got better, no harm in that, right? That's really what I want. I want to get better. And then if I get better, maybe I'll help someone else. That's kind of, I think it was hard to be selfish about it. And I actually said, if I help other people, maybe it would be, a reason to do it. Anyhow, the reason is really to feel better. But at the time, my thought process wasn't great. It was a little bit more worried about others and how they perceived and how they thought about me versus really what was happening with me and how I truly felt physically, mentally, emotionally.
Right. And I bet too, you had tried so many things and spent so much money that I bet there's also a little bit of, how do I convince my family I want to try yet another thing? But if this is something that can help somebody else, then, that makes it more worth it.
Right, exactly. But I'm doing it for others. I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for others was kind of how I had to hide it, right? And just like, you're okay, Julie. You can do this. You're going to do it for others, not for you, but for others. Well, that is not at all what happened. Yes, I help others now, but boy, did I receive help. I worked with a coach during the time I went through the advisor program, which of course is part of that. And it's so great. You get to work with them for up to 6 months. So it's fantastic. That's where the magic truly happens. Not that it's not just you, Tami, but it's with the coaches, because those are the ones that they're hand holding you as you're going through the process. And they're saying to me, don't do it for others. Let's do it for you first. Let's talk about you, not about how you're going to use it for others.
I think another thing with that too, one of the reasons why coaching is so powerful and why I include it in the program is that there's so many things out there where we're gathering knowledge, right? Like you had read all the books. And it's not learning it that actually helps you feel better. It's applying it, right? Like
some
doing
implementing
things. And, just going through a class without that application piece, it's going to help a little, but not in the same way as when you take all the information and apply it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have all been in those classes. We've all taken a course where we do just the bare minimum and we learned what we needed to know for the test and we moved on. And if we think back now, what did we learn? Not quite sure what I learned. Right?
Right. Or bought the $39 class that you download to your computer and never open
there it sits. Right. Or maybe you'll print it. So then I'll read it. Nope. It's on the bookshelf. I have that one. So that was really, truly the magic, was having someone. And this is how I talk with when I'm talking with someone on their consultation, is I say, it's like we're in a pit when we have fibromyalgia. It's like we don't know which way to turn to get help. And we try one way and we get a little help. And then we have to we go back because we're not that much better. And it's like, there's so many different approaches to it. We're not sure where to go. So we kind of take a step in and a step out, a step in. And this is someone that actually gets in with you and says, all right, maybe there's not 20 ways to go, Julie. Let's pick one and focus on it. And how simple is that, right? But I couldn't get there myself. I really needed someone to say, okay, I'm looking at your situation and I know we can fix this problem. Once we fix this problem, we're going to move on to this problem. And it literally just became the building blocks of feeling better. And I am happy to say I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. And I have control over it, which I think is something I didn't know if I'd ever be able to really feel the confidence that I could control my own symptoms. That was really big. That's really a big piece. Yes, I'm sick for the rest of my life. And yes, I need to remember that. But no, it's not me. It's not who I am, right? I get to be whoever I want to be with it. And I get to live, in a way that I enjoy. And not everybody needs to see how I take care of myself in my bed sometimes and snuggle up. We do what we have to be the best we can. And that's just really what I had learned through the coaching.
That's awesome. I remember you saying something when I think the very first time you and I ever talked, actually, we were talking about self-care and the fact that for fibro people, our self-care has to be over the top, is what I remember. Yes, I remember you saying that it has to be over the top. Like that's the baseline self-care for us, is what would be considered over the top for other people, the massage every week or whatever it is, right? Or naps in the afternoon,
The lotions and potions that we put on, right?
Right.
We've got a couple of smelly candles. And yeah, in fact, my daughter called last night on the video on FaceTime, and here I am in my comfy robe and, I've got my headband. I'm just really comfy. And that's what she says. Well, you look like the life of luxury. And I kind of thought, why aren't you? Like, we all should be, shouldn't we? Like, if we can, I have to make myself feel the best I can. And that's better than most people probably feel, if that makes sense. Because we go to a place where it's not always comfortable living our daily lives, that when it's our time off, when it's our break, when it's our healing moment, we got to go for it. We really got to go for it. And it does make a difference.
I think too, fibromyalgia, I talk occasionally about the gifts that fibromyalgia has given me. And one of them is what you're talking about here. Like we become so aware of what helps us feel better and what makes us feel worse. And we've got a really good reason to do more of the better and not as much of the worse. So in many ways, it is possible for us to get to a place where we actually do feel better than the average person out there.
I think so. I truly think that's true, Tami. I do.
Yeah.
This is awful. Maybe I do think it's a gift. Maybe I'm loving fibro now, just like you.
Side note for you listening, this is by far an advanced thought. We're not expecting you to do this.
I never, ever thought I would even like fibro. So, but what I'm saying is when you have something like fibromyalgia and you take a look at how to make it better, you get to do the things that make you feel the best. And everyone else just kind of gets just going along and they don't take the time really and understand that these self-care things I do would probably make them feel better too on just their normal daily life, right?
Right.
Maybe I'll coach them someday. Who knows?
True story. True story. So you worked with your coach and your coach was Mickey, right?
Mickey. Oh, yes. Just a doll. If you have the chance to work with Mickey, do so. She really is so good at coming alongside you and in a friendly way, like it is. And really the big one for me after looking back at everything was she taught me that boundaries are a must. And I did not have any because I didn't feel like I was worth having them. Like I'm sick, I need to just do whatever. If I can do it, I can. And that was just allowing people to rule my life and control me kind of in a way that I allowed it. So that was a big one for me was kind of, she helped me kind of arrange my life. So I knew what boundaries would be the most helpful and healthy for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes those things we can't really do for ourselves well, right?
Right.
Because your thoughts, your unconscious biases, right? Like they are unconscious. You are not aware of them.
Yep. Very true.
This becomes really, really hard to do for yourself. So yeah, that's great.
I've read boundaries. I read boundaries for marriage, boundaries with children, but did I have boundaries? No, just had the books on the shelf to show for it. But, that knowledge didn't make any changes.
Right.
It
right.
was
It's that
relationship.
Again.
And it's the relationship with someone that's been there and has walked a lot of the same roads you have, maybe almost exactly the same roads. That's what's fascinating is how alike we really all are in this and how sometimes it kind of almost mirrors the same situation someone else is in, which I think is why stories are also so powerful. Back in the day, I remember wanting to read people's stories about their fibro because I wanted to know if I was normal. None of us are normal, but I wanted to know if I was a normal fibro patient, whatever that was, right?
Right. Instead of just like some strange unicorn.
Right. And I think I also wanted to stop searching. I think I wanted to identify that, yes, this is fibro. And I think that's what's nice about coaching is because we as coaches have that knowledge to kind of say, oh, let's keep looking. Or no, let's just fix this. This is what you have. Like, it's clear as day. I don't think we need to be searching. Let's work on it. So that's an important piece as well.
Yeah, definitely. So this was when you were taking the advisor class. And after that, you decided to go on into the coach class. I mean, it sounds like it was already.
Oh, it was a no-brainer. Yeah.
Back of your mind, that's what you were doing. That's where you were going.
Absolutely. And that was kind of during our COVID time. I think you and I were you were just have one-on-one mentorship. It was amazing.
It did kind of work out that way because the way the world happened at that point. I think you graduated from your advisor class in January 2000. So right before everything shut down.
2018, 19? You said in
Oh,
2000.
yeah. 2020. Sorry.
2020. There we go.
I pictured the 20 in my head and, forgot the rest.
What? Fibro brain?
2020.
What?
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that and what that journey was like, knowing that you wanted to become a coach and also like dealing with your own fibro stuff. Were you like all the way better at the end of your advisor class?
All the way better. Boy, that is not such a thing as all the way better. It just doesn't ever happen. That is the truth of fibro. Nobody's all the way better ever. It's just none of us on this planet are.
Even in remission, I totally agree with that. There are always things that I can do to improve my health, improve my management of my fibromyalgia. And how
You have to be proactive to keep that from coming at you, right? Like it's a different way of approaching it, but you kind of have to hold your hands out and say, not accepting that. No, thank you.
right, because I don't want to go back.
Right. No, thank you. Don't want that. So, of course, I wasn't all the way better. Going into, even the advisor course, I wasn't sure if I had the brain power, if I even had the capacity to really focus and learn, not in just, my own way, but there was homework I needed to do. And I tried to not allow myself to get overwhelmed, which, it can happen at any time for me. But I also had the coach that was coaching me during this. So I'm talking with her as I'm doing it, and she's kind of helping me. And as I did the advisor course, it really showed me I still can think, it's still up there. And then, yes, that kind of led me on to doing the coaching. And I was excited at that point because I had reached a level really that I'm not sure I was going to ever. This was after, the advisor course. I wasn't sure I'd be that well again. And so, I was riding high. Woo, I'm going to be a coach now. Sky's the limit. So definitely I was upbeat and positive and kept pushing at that point. But there were those doubts that could you do it? Can you do it? And then when you're starting to work with clients, that was another thing that was, oh boy, can you do it? And having you in my corner, of course, is a big help. And I had my coach who was still available to me. And, I could text her email her if I really was struggling during the week. But I just managed to get better and better. And I started to do things that I didn't know I could do again. I'm riding on the back of a motorcycle. What?
You went to Hawaii by yourself.
I traveled to Hawaii by myself. And not only did I go once by myself, then I went 2 other times with my hubby. So, I was enjoying life and still am. And that's kind of where I'm at is let's just do the best we can with the bodies that we have, good or bad, and make this the best that we can. So then we can help others, but we got to be first.
We definitely do. We definitely do.
Yeah.
And I do also want to point out here that it wasn't a perfect, gentle uphill climb all the way. I remember many conversations with you during the coach training program as you would sort of figure out where your sweet spot was for how much you wanted to be working, what helped your body feel your best. We'd get a little bit too many and then we'd have to back off. So talk a little bit about what that was like, balancing that, helping others with taking care of yourself.
Yeah, that was really difficult. And that was another time to really learn about boundaries because I really wanted to give my all to these people. And my old pattern of giving my all was starting to take from what I had gained. And though that seems like the right way to live, it truly isn't with someone that has a chronic illness because you don't have the reserves to then pick you back up if you give it all away. So I really tried to balance, and you really showed me, hey, don't do so many calls in one day, or let's only work a few days a week or 3 weeks a month, right? Let's come up with solutions, which you're so great at and which all of our coaches are. Solutions with how it will work best for your body, right? Even if I was talking with one client a month, I thought that was success. So I needed to keep that in mind while also having this passion growing inside me that I wanted to do more. So it's good that you were there to kind of remind me, oh yeah, your brain is taken off from that body again. Might want to take it with you, right? Yes, you want to do all this, but can you? Should you? Are you sure?
Right. And it's not just about can you do it once, but like consistently be able to do it. I mean, that's one of the things about working with clients is now somebody's paid you and you have this obligation to fulfill, however many coaching sessions, right? And you can't burn yourself out in the middle and then not be able to deliver.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got to find that sweet spot where our business becomes sustainable. Not just like it's sustainable in terms of like the environment and recycling your paper, but sustainable yourself, your own energy, your health.
Right. And something though you didn't tell me that when you are,
I didn't tell you at first.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't realize how I would benefit from working with clients.
Yeah.
And how that would actually change my whole perspective and kind of how I saw the taking care of myself. Now I really have to do it not only for myself, for them. You can't teach what you don't have. You can't give what you don't, already have received. So I got to follow my own rules. My husband always says, well, what would you say to your client, Julie? And oh yeah, I should probably stop what I'm doing and not do the gardening anymore. Right. So yeah, I got spurred on by working with clients because their lives were changing. And it's kind of addicting. That feeling of helping people, it's addicting. And you just want to do more and more. But I always want to make sure I'm doing the best for them. So it was good for you to keep me in line. Just because it felt good doesn't mean, just because candy's good doesn't mean we should eat the whole bag.
That's right. That's right. And like you said, you want to be the best for your clients. And you can't be your best if you're running on fumes, right? So you have to take care of yourself. I think being a coach, I say this often, but it's totally my secret weapon. Because doing this, living this life, having a chronic illness that, mine's in remission, but it never goes away. It's always there in your mind. It can be really hard to do that every day. Do all the things that you're supposed to do. You don't get to take a vacation from having fibromyalgia. Without that extra motivation, I would not be here today. I would have stopped doing all of the things because it's hard work.
Is it just our human nature that just wants to kind of go back into a shell and do nothing again? Because that's not really going to make us happy.
No, but
we've been there. We don't want it.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have those moments of, really?
We all do.
I talked about this in the last episode, but mine is always going to bed. I just I don't want to go to bed. I feel like my inner 2-year-old comes out,
boy.
Stamps her foot and says, I don't want to.
Yep. And sometimes they win. There are those times, that mind of its own. It can kind of win. But yes.
So here we are now. You graduated as a certified fibromyalgia coach in January of 21. So you have been coaching now for about 1.5 years. You were coaching as a student, but as a fully certified coach on your own, for 1.5 years, hundreds of hours working with clients. What do you think is the biggest difference in your life now? So aside from all the business stuff, like just you personally, how is your life different now?
I think that my life has a kind of meaning in it that finally feels that I get to give somebody things that I've been receiving. And I think I was born with that kind of innate kind of service type person. I always want to do things for people. And what could I not do with fibromyalgia? I couldn't do things for people. I really couldn't. And that's what I kept trying. It was doing things, right? I realized that it's just me. I don't have to do anything. This isn't, coaching isn't really, it's not strenuous activity. All I have to be is me, 100% me. And that's what they need, to see that person, right? that can come alongside and I can say, oh, I recognize you. I've been there. Right. And just do the mini steps with you, is really, really important. So I think the biggest difference between now and then is not being so angry at fibromyalgia, at my body, at the world, at God, at everything that I was here on earth. Honestly, this just was like the bow on my life saying, oh, yep, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Yes, of course, you're supposed to be a mom and a wife and a daughter and a friend and a whatever else. But this was the cherry on top. This was, you were supposed to help people, and you're supposed to help people that are on the same path, that are just maybe a little bit farther back. Not much. I mean, hey, we can walk alongside one another. You don't have to be way back there. Come alongside with me, because it's a daily battle with fibromyalgia that you have to know how to gear up for and be ready for. And that's what coaching will help you with.
Awesome. Awesome. So for the people who are out there right now who can relate to your story, maybe they've had fibromyalgia for 20 years and are living with their own personal illness, not Julie disease. They would have their own.
They got their own. They have their own.
And they are like, oh gosh, they've tried all the things. What would you say to that person? How would you encourage them?
I would encourage them to really ask the question, do they want to change first? Because you really do have to want to change. And it's funny when we're ill, again, because we need that self-care, we kind of cocoon ourselves, we isolate, we kind of pull back. And because of that, we can't help ourselves yet. So when you start to feel that you're getting out of that and you're looking for help, the biggest thing that you can do is, I would obviously say, let's get you with a coach, but even starting to talk with more people about it and being honest with your situation, not downplaying what you're going through, because the suffering that is involved, I can tell you firsthand, it's deep and it's hard, and people are on their couch every day crying. And I don't want that for them. And if they just do one thing each day, one new thing each day to try to bring them out of that, to ask for help, even if it's to go to a doctor for a new medication, something, right? There's so many resources out there. You may not be ready for a coach. You just may be ready to start reading a book and do some very simple things, very simple supplements, right? Maybe stop some gluten. Let's just baby steps, because taking that leap, we won't do it. We just won't do it. So baby steps. And we can help you along the way. But again, not everybody's there yet either. So I don't want them to be on the couch crying, though. I know there's a lot of people suffering with this. I know it. And because it's the other 4-letter word, that's how I say it, that sometimes we have family members, we have people in our lives who don't even believe us. And that is devastating. So let's get you to a place where you can feel confident. Confident in being sick and saying, hey, I don't feel good. There's something about that. In fact, I had one client that had said to me, ever since I've been working with you, my family thinks I'm not doing that well. and I thought,
because she's being more honest about how she actually feels.
Because for the first time after 15 years, she mentioned, hey, I really hurt. Hey, I can't do those things. Hey, up and down the stairs 20 times a night isn't helpful for me. That's what it is. And then they got to help her, right? It wasn't that she was getting worse. It was that she was expressing finally how she felt so she could get better.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So for the people who are wondering, okay, all right, maybe, what does working with you, if you were their coach, what would that look like?
Well, to be honest, I always tell this to my clients I talk to. It looks different for every person, right? There's no set time to do things. This is about you, right? When I'm working with a client, I am taking into account everything that's going on in their life. It will look different for each person. Some of you may work with me for a few months. I have some that have been with me the year and a half. So it's so wonderful to kind of look at somebody's life and with them reevaluate and come up with a plan that actually serves them and brings them joy again. So I am pleased to say that I see that in every single one of my clients. I mean, I don't know, you can't really do a guarantee in life, but they all get better. They all get better. So if you want to work with me, that would be fantastic. I have to say, because I have 6 grandchildren and 3 daughters, and they all live within 5 minutes of myself. I'm a busy lady and I love working with people, but I do only take a few people at a time because of this. We've talked about boundaries, right?
Yep.
But sure, I mean, look me up on Find a Coach page, be able to put in, an application through the Institute. You could also go on, I think, Facebook. I'm Julie Schiffman Coaching on there. And of course, my website, same thing, julieschiffmancoaching.com. Lots of ways to get a hold of me. And I think some people that are peeking their head out and wondering what to do, if you want more than a coach, meaning you need to know what's going on in your body and you need to understand it and you really need to grasp those concepts for long term, you feel like that would help, then I would encourage people to sign up for your next class that I believe it's in August.
Yes, we start on August 30th. Yep.
Right. So, I mean, I would encourage people to do that, of course, but not everyone is needing that or is ready for that even, right? So your coaching is going to be the best situation for anyone. If we're honest, having someone there with you is always better than doing it alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Having that person to bounce ideas off of. Sometimes we can even save you money because we can give you an idea of, maybe not try that, but try this. And
right. Maybe not see the, 4 doctors on this side. Let's just try, this type of doctor and see if they can't cover all of them. Right. It does save money. I mean, I'm thinking of all the tests, my goodness, I had ran, and this gave me the assurance that I know what's going on in my body and I know what's happening, right? That's, if you need that, then the advisor course is for sure for you. And Tami works with you to, if you don't feel like, oh, I don't know if I can do homework. What if I have to read? I don't want to go to school again. This isn't really school. This is you learning about you and why and what's happening with this thing called fibromyalgia in your body and what you can then do about it. And you will find that the list of treatments and supplements and medications and tools and lotions and things that we can do to help with our symptoms, it's a never-ending list. I mean, honestly. So that gives me hope there, right? That we constantly are having new and new ways to improve how we feel, improve our life. And I mean, who knows? Maybe there'll be a cure? Who knows? We don't know. There's been a lot of different things, come along the way, and each of them can kind of help with a little piece here and a little piece there. And it's never a lost cause. No one's a lost cause. Everyone can get better.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect place to end. I
Perfect.
couldn't have said it better myself, Julie. I really do believe that every single person listening to this, you, Julie, me, myself, we all can find ways to feel better, a little bit better here, a little bit better there. You add all those little bits together and you can go a long way.
Absolutely. Farther than I thought I could. I'm grateful to you and for the Coaching Institute for that, for giving me the opportunity to do that. So appreciate it.
You are so welcome. And thank you so much for being here. Everyone, hang on. I've got our listener shout out that I'm going to give you next, along with a couple of just details on how you can get some of the things Julie and I were talking about. I really hope you enjoyed hearing Julie's story. It's truly been an honor to watch her transformation from when we first met in 2019 to where she is today, 3 years later. If you're looking for someone to give you that tough love and encouragement, who understands where you've been and knows how to get you where you're going, then consider scheduling a consultation with Julie, especially if you're balancing your fibromyalgia with being a mama or a grandma with 7 grandchildren and 3 daughters. She knows how to balance it all. You can schedule online at findafibrocoach.com. Now, there's no obligation to do anything at these consultations except show up. If you're looking for more inspiration, consider joining us at our next Stories of Hope and Healing graduation event. It will be held on Saturday, July 23rd. I will be interviewing 4 of our most recent graduates about how they've improved their fibromyalgia over the last few months. You can visit today's show notes for the link to register. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/86. On that show notes page, I'm also going to include some links to some past podcast episodes that have graduate stories, fibromyalgia stories, and I'm also going to include a link that shows our past Stories of Hope and Healing graduation events so that you can watch those as well. Hearing what other people have done can be a really, really great way to get new ideas, find some encouragement, and get inspired. When you don't have much hope yourself, you can listen in and borrow somebody else's hope. And now I have this week's listener shout out for you. This email was sent in by Sarah and is one of the reasons that we shared Julie's story today. Sarah says, "Hi, Tami and everyone at IFCI. My story is long, probably like most people who have reached out with fibromyalgia. But it wasn't until just a few months ago that I stumbled upon your podcast and began to accept the diagnosis that I first heard in 2016. The podcast has really resonated with me. I related to so many of the details of your story. It was only after listening to it that I realized that fibromyalgia is real and not just a random category that they place undiagnosed people into, and that all these sensations or symptoms are not all in my head. The experts that you've interviewed, researched, referenced, and information provided have been both helpful and validating. Thank you so much. You've already positively impacted my life in a big way. Warm regards, Sarah." Now, as I said, Sarah's email is one of the reasons that I have been inspired to share more stories, interview more of our coaches, and share all of that with you. Hearing a story that you can relate to can make you feel so much less alone. It can feel very, like Sarah said, validating. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your email and for giving me a great idea. In our next episode, I'll be talking about a major theme from the students in our current Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor class. These are the students who are graduating on July 23rd. The theme that keeps coming up week after week in that class is, what if it isn't fibromyalgia? All too often, we consider the pain, fatigue, and brain fog symptoms that we are currently experiencing to simply be part of our fibromyalgia. And many times our providers sort of support that when we go in with a new complaint telling us, "Oh, that's just your fibromyalgia." But what if it isn't? What if it's something else that's completely treatable? What if your pain is coming from something else? What if your pain and fatigue and brain fog are all coming from something else? And what if we treat that? So come back next time and hear what I shared with my students about what if it isn't fibromyalgia. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.